Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back to our channel on this gorgeous, gorgeous rainy day from Melbourne. I'm just loving it. I think the last time I sat down to film here, it was like so hot that I had to turn the air conditioner on between videos. So I am just loving this weather. I hope wherever you are loving whatever weather the world is giving you. I personally think that all weather is enjoyable, and it's a great metaphor, I think, for enjoying the ups and downs of life, if you want to call the sun that we all typically love and want for, but also recognizing that the rain is a normal, expected part of life. And if you just allow it and don't resist it, hate on it, or complain about it being here, it's quite enjoyable. Total side note. Today, my beautiful friends, I want to talk about the topic of being unrealistic, because it's been coming through as a bit of a theme in sessions with my clients recently where, these women are big, ambitious, impressive women who have amazing goals and talent and skills, potential, prospects. And inevitably, along that path, other people are gonna doubt your journey. They're gonna question if all of what you're dreaming of, all of what you're asking for is actually possible, reasonable, fair, realistic. When you set big goals, not only is there the threat to your mind and your body of not achieving that goal and ending up disappointed or embarrassed, but there's also so many opportunities our mind can see along the way. Even if we commit ourselves to that goal in the future, we can see step after step after step is opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to fail. Or a fear-based mind will see threat after threat after threat after threat, especially when your goals are big, especially if you're doing something that you haven't done before. You have no guarantees, and what your mind wants more than anything is certainty. We want to know that the work we're doing, one, isn't going to land us with the discomfort of disappointment and embarrassment. We fear that, we avoid that. But also we don't want to prove ourselves incapable, kill our hopes and our dreams, our possibility, our concept of our potential. So at the same time, when you have big, ambitious, amazing goals for your life, for your day, for your week, for your year, on one hand, your brain can see the possibility, the payoff, loving the challenge, the growth, the journey, the transformation and the impact that pursuing that goal and achieving that goal can give to you. Simultaneously, by definition, these goals also form all these threats to us. The emotional pain that we could feel if we don't live up to our expectations, and the threat of what it could do to our self-concept, because we know our brain will want to form a verdict about what any failure means, and that's a threat to us. So these things go part and parcel. You don't get the payoff unless there's that challenge there. And you can't have a challenge without there being a threat of you falling short and all the consequences of that. But we don't often think about it this way. And so what that can mean is that we can be unprepared for how to respond to our brain when it presents these threats to us. And when we're speaking to other people and they remind us of all these threats, all these possible threats that come with our big, amazing goals, there's a danger here that a mind that isn't conscious and deliberate, if you're not self-aware of what's happening, then you can just absorb without any filter the concepts of these threats and fears, take them on, internalize them, and use them as a reason to stop because you're being unrealistic. So this is what we're talking about today. Not only have I seen it time and time again in my amazing clients, but this is something that I've personally experienced many times along my path to where I am today, and I will experience many, many times again in every goal and every want in my life to come. I've chosen to be aware and prepared of this, building my self-awareness through coaching, and I want that for you too. I want this for my clients. I want somebody to be able to float the idea that they're being unrealistic, and for that to not be a problem. However, I want my clients to have mentors in their life, people who are steps ahead of them with industry-specific knowledge, who can give them great advice on getting to where they're going. We don't want to stay in our own little lane and never take on any advice. We need to learn from other people and other instances from history, what's happening in the world and what's happening right now with people in our spheres, in the place where we want to go. We need to be very deliberate with taking on concepts that aren't useful to us, such as being unrealistic, when the people that we admire and we look up to and the people who are steps ahead of us can project their limiting beliefs their biased beliefs from their experience onto us. Not at all maliciously. I don't think for 1 second that any mentor, certainly any informal mentor, anybody who's giving you their time and attention and love in this way is trying to maliciously limit you. But we are biased and flawed humans. We project our own experience onto other people. And this is a big difference between having a mentor and a coach. Both a mentor and a coach want the best for you. They hold that space for you to be your best person. But a mentor is not necessarily trained or purposeful, at the very least, in being unbiased with their thoughts and trying to understand the client or the mentee, the full picture of what they want and where they want to go before they impart their advice. And the mentor, with all their best intentions, can accidentally project the limitations of their experience onto the mentee. And this example that my clients have brought to me, and I can see in my life so far as well, when people we look up to, when people who are in a place that we're trying to move towards, at least in one aspect of our life, can accidentally tell us that something is not possible or available or realistic for us. A coach, however, one of the most important spaces, services, roles they offer is being an unbiased partner. So a coach can hold that space where a client says, this is what I want. Your coach has no place to say whether that is unrealistic or not in their opinion. Your coach won't offer you advice, but instead your coach will help you explore why that is or isn't possible. This doesn't mean that the coach lets you blindly chase dreams without a plan. But what the coach does is helps you explore and justify your thoughts about it, your reasoning, and hold that space for you to work out how to do it and how you want to do it and doing it in line with your values, as opposed to being stopped unknowingly at times by somebody telling you that it's unrealistic, by just taking on this concept. So I want to give you 3 points today to think on for yourself for when you're in that situation where somebody that you look up to or that you tend to take advice from can accidentally, with all the love in the world, tell you that you're being unrealistic. The shame and imposter syndrome that this concept can put into our minds and our bodies can be absolutely halting for our goals and totally change the trajectories of our lives for the worst. So I want you to be onto this when it happens in your life and be able to coach yourself through the situation with a couple of key points to consider. Let's talk about 3 of them today. Our 3 sections today are 1, you are the expert on you. 2, accept advice with a filter. And 3, be unrealistic by choice. Let's get into it. All right, section 1, you are the expert on you. We have mentors everywhere in our lives. We have people that we look up to and aspire to, or people that we highly respect their advice and opinions. This might be mentors in your career. You might have people senior to you in different sections of your career that you're aiming to go towards. It might be your peers, it might be people junior to you. It might be people in your athletic endeavors, or even people who we aspire to from the sense of they have a great work-life balance, or they seem to be happy. They seem to have that balance of challenge and connection in their life just right. I want that. People that we look up to for certain reasons. Your parents, or commonly your older siblings, for example, can be examples of informal mentors in your life, people who inform you about what's possible for what you're aspiring to, explicitly or implicitly. They might give you direct advice, or they might just be an example of what is possible for you in the way they're living their life. This is really important for you to think about, because when we are walking around the world, living our lives, we are looking out in the world to get examples, to get evidence for what is possible and what is not possible, what's available to us in our lifetimes and what's not. And that's why I say it can be explicitly or implicitly. The people that we look up to and aspire to are giving us advice, whether it's with their explicit words or not, by being an example of what is possible. Now, here's the thing. That all sounds quite reasonable when we think about it that way, when we look out into the world to say, this is a real thing, therefore it's available for me. But when I say, you are the expert on you, I say this with full conviction because there is only one of you. You are the only one who knows you. Everybody else is slightly unique. Everybody else is different to you. Sure, we have some evolutionary epigenetic similarities. We have some cultural similarities. We have the way that we were socialized and brought up as similarities. And then we have our own personal influence. And when we mix all these things together, all these different influences, we are quite unique. You'll never be able to replicate somebody else's life, and you yourself will never have your life replicated. So while you can look outside of you for what everybody else is doing as evidence for what is possible for you, that's never truly the case. It's never the complete picture. These are just examples, offerings, a smorgasbord, if you like, of what may be available, what you could possibly do in your life as well. But it's not the full picture, it's not the complete data set of what's possible. For you specifically, you are a unique person on your own unique path, and the way that somebody has done their life is not available to you. The advice that somebody gives you for what is possible or not possible in your life does not completely apply to you. These are colored by their own experiences, and just like you can never completely know their experience, they will never completely know your experience either. The example that I want to use for this first point, you are the expert on you, is when a respected mentor, somebody who's many steps ahead of you, someone for who in just the, say, career aspect of your life, you totally admire them and you would love to have 90% of what they have for their career in terms of their passion and their mastery and their achievements or their credentials. But this person, even with all of their mastery, their experience, their attitude, their credentials, this person can't, in all integrity, stand in front of you and tell you that what you want is unrealistic. Even when it comes to that specific career path, all they have is their experience. All they have is what they've done before. All they have is this small specific data set of what was available, what they could even perceive was available to them. And in this case with my client, for whom her mentor said that her career aspirations were unrealistic, this was him projecting his experience onto her. Perhaps it's unrealistic with his specific set of priorities and wants and skills and the place he started. But for her, that is not necessarily the case. He is not the expert on her. And the reason that we project these limiting beliefs on other people is so commonly because we think that we're saving this person from disappointment and embarrassment. But here's the thing. My client can handle an instance of disappointment and embarrassment because with that, she gets the strategic byproducts of learning where her gaps are, learning what she wants to change, as opposed to avoiding trying, putting down what she wants because one person told her that it wasn't realistic based on his experience. Because what I know about my client is she's going to be a lot more disappointed and a lot more embarrassed in the long term if she doesn't go after what she wants. That's going to hurt her emotionally so much more than being disappointed or embarrassed because she tried. Because what I know about this client, what she's told me explicitly, is that she doesn't want to fit in a box. She values being the kind of person who has a go and doesn't let herself be limited by what other people think is safe. Point number 2, accept advice with a filter. So here's the thing. With my client, even in this instance, I want her to be able to accept all of this wonderful knowledge, this experience that her senior mentor has for her. I want this to be the case for everyone. And I want you guys to be able to have many mentors and many influencers that can help give you advice that progresses you along your journey and makes you think differently and makes you more broader and more aware of what is possible for you. I certainly have benefited in many instances. In fact, I wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am right now if I didn't have the amazing advice and influences from other people to take on. But no matter how much you respect, admire, aspire to certain qualities of someone, I want you to never take on advice without a filter. This is not an easy thing to do, right? You need to be open to the world, to the advice, to the wisdom of other people. But you need to be able to take it on and in your mind, compare it to your values, to what you want to believe. This needs to be something that you purposefully implement in your life. Because we are educated, we go through our school system learning that there are authorities outside that have the answers, whether it's a textbook or whether it's our teacher, our lecturer. We are constantly working towards fitting in this box and just learning the knowledge that is already out there so that we can become smarter, So in this process, year after year after year after year, especially a process that we went through in our most formative years, we lose this process that we otherwise have of checking in with ourselves and checking in with what we think, just asking how we would solve this problem. Instead, we go to the internet now, we go to Google straight away and say, how do we ... So this is something that you need to actively unlearn in your life. And you can use your mentors as a great cue, a great example, a great practice model for starting to do that. Taking on their advice, listening intently with the complete intention, having a board meeting in your head, bringing the idea in and saying, what do I think about this? Finally, my last point, the choice to be unrealistic. So somebody says to you, you're being unrealistic or some variation of that. And this will most commonly result in feeling like a total kick in the guts. The moment that somebody says that to you, that you're being unrealistic, you're probably gonna straight away feel embarrassment, disappointment, all those feelings that you're wanting to avoid by chasing this goal and potentially failing anyway, right? But when you get that emotional cue of being kicked down, when you notice that happen in your body, I want this to be a cue for you to look at what's happening in your brain. What are your thoughts about you being unrealistic? Let's just say they're right for a moment. Let's just say they have something valid to say in their point. You're being unrealistic. Now, what are you making that mean? Why is this a problem that you're being unrealistic? So firstly, we've already talked about the fact that this is their experience. It's the experience of the other person with all of their influences and their values. That's their opinion that you're being unrealistic. But it only matters to you because you believe that on some level too. So let's talk about it. Let's find out why your brain believes this. Because if you're getting that sinking, defeated, embarrassed, whatever negative, unpleasant feeling in your body, it means that you believe it on some level too. So I'm gonna need you to look into that. I wanna offer you some thoughts to structure a way of working through this. You're being unrealistic. Let's just assume for a second that, okay, we don't want to be unrealistic. We instead want to be realistic. What does that look like? What does that mean to you? Why is it a good thing to be realistic? Tell me what being realistic looks like to you. If we're being realistic, it means that we're looking at what's already real in the world and we are deciding that we only want to repeat things that are already real, whatever that means. So perhaps it means for you something that you've already done before, right? Something that you've done in the past, which means it's realistic for you to do it again in the future. That's most of our reasoning, right? But to start with, you have no idea what is possible in your future. Just because you've done it in your past doesn't even mean that you could do it again in the future. This circumstance in the future is now different to the past. Now, on the other hand, it works both ways. Just because something hasn't been done in your past doesn't mean that it's not available, possible in your future. So what really is being realistic? What does that actually mean? We could also use the other example of people saying, well, if somebody else has done it before, then it's realistic for me to do it as well. But again, the same reasoning applies. Just because it's been done before doesn't mean it can be replicated in the future. And also, as we talked about at the start of the video, just because it's been somebody else's experience doesn't mean that it's available for you. Different people, different experiences. So while the sentence, you're being unrealistic, can really kick you down, you need to be clear about what that actually means to you and what's the alternative to that as well. Do you want to be realistic, or are you actually being unrealistic by choice? If you actually sit down and work through this, work through all the thoughts and the connotations that come with being unrealistic, you might find that perhaps you would prefer to live a life somewhat more like somebody who believes in possibility, believes in something more than what's been done before, and they want to create something new in their lives. Somebody who doesn't need complete certainty in their life to make it worthwhile to do something. Somebody who isn't afraid to feel those feelings of embarrassment or disappointment, because when you can feel those feelings, they're just sensations in your body. When you can feel those feelings in your body, risk feeling them and then be with them when they come. Then knowing that you are okay feeling these feelings, they're just sensations. Then you know that they're nothing worth avoiding. If you're avoiding being unrealistic just because you're worried about feeling disappointed or embarrassed, When you can trust yourself to feel those feelings and not spiral from them, not make them mean something more than what they are, just sensations in your body and associated thoughts, judgments, drawing verdicts about what this means, when you can realize that those things are not something worth avoiding, your life opens up. In fact, I like to think that feeling negative feelings, uncomfortable feelings is one of my absolute superpowers. I don't need to avoid anything. If I know that I can take care of myself when I have those feelings, get up and keep moving. And secondly, being unrealistic is also one of my superpowers because it means I don't have to be limited by this vague concept of what's real, what's realistic. And instead I can look inwards and say, what do I want for my lifetime? What do I want for my short, sweet, amazing lifetime? And I'm definitely willing to trade some disappointment and embarrassment for the opposite alternatives on the positive side. I think that's a good life, when you can have both extremes, a bit in the middle, when the whole emotional spectrum is available to you. Or you can rumble along, just being comfortable just in this mid-range. All I want is for you to purposely decide. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in my next one.